Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Biz Dev Podcast, the podcast about developing your business. I am David Baxter, and I am your host. And I am joined today by amateur trapeze artist Gary Voigt.
I still have that balance, man. Still got it.
Get that balance. Still working on that?
The rope's only a few inches from the ground, but I still got it.
Nice. We are also joined by a special guest, Jon Darbyshire. He is the CEO of SmartSuite. And he has a passion for all things no code, which anyone who's listened to this show knows that is something we talk about pretty regularly. So I'm excited about this one. He also is just had SmartSuite happens to be the one of the competitors for ClickUp, which is what we've married. So he's going to convert me later on in the show. It'll be great. So welcome, Jon. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Looking forward to it.
So we're going to start out talking about the thing we always talk about. Actually, I'm going to start with this. So a couple of weeks ago, I saw on LinkedIn an image, and I'm going to describe this because mostly people are on audio. But if you have video, then I'm doing cylinders. 2 cylinders right next to each other. One says Apple. The other says, I'm going to get this right. I'm looking at it. Netflix, Meta, Amazon, and Google. Apple is now the size of all of those other guys combined.
When it comes
because
to value.
all of them are contracted. Yeah. Sorry. Market cap. Yes, that's important. And that's interesting because all of those were $1 trillion companies. What, 6 months ago?
Yeah, not even a year ago.
And now Apple is worth 2.4 trillion, which is mind-bogglingly crazy. And all of those others combined are worth 2.3 trillion. Now, of course, those change every single day, but the fact remains those guys have shrank, especially I think the big one there is Meta. Meta has just lost its shirt in the last 3 weeks. And they were $1 trillion company by themselves. Now they're few $100 billion, which is still ridiculously huge. Don't get me wrong.
The metaverse has become the fire hose of just blowing cash away for Zuckerberg.
Just lighting a fire. It's just a big blowtorch of cash. That's what it's powered by. Just cash. Anyway, I thought that was really interesting how they've changed. And then I saw an article today, and this was the real thing we were going to talk about. The real article today was Vox had an article about how not only the tech companies doing all these layoffs, but they're using it as a chance to kind of change their culture a little bit and tighten up their belt straps, not bootstraps. You don't need to tighten up your bootstraps. Anyway, they're doing that to change some of their perks and some of their crazy things they've been giving away forever because now they are tight. They're blue chips, right? These guys are blue chip companies. They can't grow at 30% a year anymore. Because there are not that many humans alive. That's really where we're at now. These companies are so big that they're literally running out of humans to sign up.
So they're using this as a way to kind of change the expectations of, I guess, new hires or current employees.
New hires, yeah.
Yeah.
Or existing, it's kind of like, hey, you don't like this change? There's the door because we got to get rid of you anyways. I mean, Elon Musk, I just read it this morning, he's laying off more people. Which, I mean, it's going to be him and him.
Him and 2 tech bros running Twitter from now on.
So, I mean, I said to my team, I said, not that I could ever say I could run Twitter. I'm not saying that. But I believe Elon Musk's only job is to find the CEO that will be the one running Twitter and then get out of the way. That's his only job as the owner. And apparently he just cannot do that. But anyway, that's not what I'm talking about. I've talked about Twitter for weeks now. So what do you think about all this, Jon? What do you think about all these layoffs and these culture resets and all that?
Yeah, I was just having this exact conversation over the weekend with a few of my peers. And we were talking specifically about what Elon's doing at Twitter, with the first big layoff that was there. I think the first thing that happened there is Twitter should have probably made that layoff months and months ago. They knew Elon was coming on board, so they waited, right? They're losing $4 million a day, $28 million a week. You can't be in business very long with those kinds of numbers. So it was coming, regardless if it was Elon or somebody else. But the second wave that happened, where he basically said, hey, you're either on board working some long hours or this job isn't right for you, I think was the culture fit that you're talking about here. And that he's coming in and saying, hey, we have a lot of remote people. I don't really understand how they fit in. We all need to be together on this, probably in the same location if we're going to fix these problems at Twitter. And I think most people understand that Twitter's got some technology problems it's just causing a lot of concern internally from a growth perspective, and that they need to focus on. So I think Elon knows that now. He's been in the weeds, and he's saying, hey, it's going to take some long hours for us to get that done, and you can't do that out of the office. And I think that in general is happening across a lot of the tech companies right now that over the last 2 years have hired a lot of remote workers. And some of them are finding that that's great in certain situations, and in others, it's not so great. And it slows things down for those companies. And it's hard to get some of those people to come back. I mean, once you're working from home, we're a remote first company ourselves. Once you're working from home, it's hard to go back in the office, and even spend that 30 minutes in the car driving both ways just kills you, right? So I definitely see that happening kind of across the board on the tech side.
Man, I tell you, I could talk to you for hours because you're a remote company too, which is we are as well. Now we're much smaller than you, I assume, but we've been remote for 6-ish years, way before the pandemic, and we have kind of been muddling along, figuring it out, right? And it's not like anybody's got a playbook for this stuff for 6 years. And how do we build a culture remotely? How big is SmartSuite, give or take?
Yeah, just a little under 100.
Nice. And you're all over the world, or US, or?
We're in 9 different countries. Yeah.
Okay. So that's even crazier because you got time zones at the yin yang, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I think we're in like 16 time zones.
Do you have somewhere all those clocks? I've always wondered why everyone who has international offices, they feel the need to have all the clocks.
We don't have them on the wall, but there's some apps you download that just throw them in your toolbar in your browser. So it's easy. And we've been doing it so long now. I just know the time zones where everybody else is at.
Mm-hmm. So. Very cool. Very cool. I think, going back to our original question, I think it's good that they're kind of, well, part of me is kind of selfish because I'm like, well, maybe the salaries will finally come down. Maybe. I mean, development talent is hard to come by no matter what. I think it might change some of the, like one of the things the article mentioned was that these developers, and they were specifically talking about only developers, but you've been working for Facebook or whatever, and you knew for the last 10 plus years, they were saying the last time we've had a contraction like this in the tech space was 2002, which most of the people in the tech space right now weren't even barely alive when this blew up last time, right? Or if they were children. And so they've never experienced this. It's always been straight up to the right forever. And now they're like, whoa, what do you mean I can't get another job in 16 minutes? That's going to change things a lot. And I got to say, I'm all for it as a smaller company who can't pay that. I mean, I got a friend who went to Amazon. He's like, yeah, I get $200K a year. I'm like, whoa, that's insane. But that's what they can pay because they just print money, right? The money printers are out there.
I think that's why a lot of smaller companies, probably like yourself, like SmartSuite, we hire a lot of developers more internationally. It's harder to hire those really high-end folks in the US, especially Northern California, just because the price points can't fit with our business model. We would love to have them. We just can't afford them, right? So we have to have another way to do that. And I'm with you. I think those the salaries of the young people in the 2 to 7 years range on the development side are going to come down because of this. And hopefully they're more attainable for the smaller companies because the big guys have just pushed. They hire those people right out of school. They pay them more than we pay people that have worked 5 or 6 years a lot of times in that domain. And it's hard for those people to ever want to leave those big companies to go to work for a small company because they feel like, hey, I was earning that amount of money when I started. What you're going to pay me today. So,
yeah, I think the golden handcuffs are real. There's a company here in Cary, which is a town to the south of Raleigh, it's called SAS. They're one of the largest private employers in the world, and they have what the classic golden handcuffs that they're famous and they've been around forever. Like they have the doctor on site and they have a cafeteria on site that's free. They have daycare that's free for workers. I mean, and so they're like, people can't ever leave because you're never going to find that anywhere else in the world, which is great. I mean, I love that they can do that. Don't get me wrong. But now, you're not going to have the yogurt bar and the free masseuse and whatnot in Google because they have to actually, I wonder though, in the back of my mind when I was reading this article, how much of that is a little I call it preemptive ow, when my wife says ow before anything hurts her, right? She's just pretending, or she's preparing for it to hurt. How much of this is a preemptive ow? Because they're still printing money. Google makes more money than anyone else besides Apple. Why are they going to get draconian, and yet they're still printing all the cash?
Yeah. I'll give you my perspective on some of that. So, it's very different when you've had a job for 5 or 6 years and then you go to work for one of those tech companies and you have all those perks and you really appreciate those perks at that point, right? You never had them before. It's different when you start your career and you have all of that. It's just kind of expected, right? And I think that's kind of what's happening, is the expectation is just there across all of these things, and it's not as appreciated as much. And a lot of the companies are trying to do a reset just to get people back involved in the core culture of the company and what they're all about. And it's not necessarily the perks, right, for the job. They want you to work at these companies because you believe in what they're doing, and the company that's there, you're willing to work hard. And the perks are just that. They're perks that make everything even better that's there. But that's my 2 cents on some of that.
Well, your 2 cents are as good as mine.
There's also the issue of we've come across it a few times when we were trying to hire, whether it's a contractor or a full-time position for devs. It seems like it's almost ingrained into their culture that after 2 years, you look for a different job just because you know you're going to get a price bump. So
Right.
maybe this is another way to kind of take that down a notch so that devs aren't jumping, from company to company to company just to keep increasing their salary year over year. Do you think that might have an effect? Or I guess this reset on perks, packages, and salaries might have an effect on that, keeping devs a little bit more loyal?
If you're in the Palo Alto and surrounding area, and you have a good job, there's 3 other companies recruiting you right now. Like there's always somebody recruiting you that's there. And it's easy for you to say, all right, I've worked my 2 years, my stock options just vested on year 2. I'm off to the next one. And you just start collecting those stock options from all these great companies, which is really cool, right? If you're young,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not cool for the company because they're always losing great talent that's there. I hope that changes that mentality a little bit. I have to wait and see.
So we're gonna wander off the first tangent because I have a question based on what Gary just asked. Everyone experiences devs the same sort of way, like he was saying. Every 2 to 3 years, they get the itch and they want to go see what's out there. We work very, very hard to minimize that itch in our company. Of course, it's not perfect. We have people who come and go, but I think our turnover rate's probably lower than most. But I'm curious what you do to fight that as well, because that's a real problem no matter who you are.
Yep. We took a very different approach 3 years ago when we started SmartSuite, trying to see if this might be the new way to do things. And I've had the chance to invest in about 400 startups here over the last 8 to 10 years. So I've been involved with founders of companies starting with 2 or 3 people, and growing when they're hiring their first devs that are there. We took the approach that we picked 3 pretty well-known development companies. One in the US that also works in Brazil that does a lot of work for SpaceX and the big guys, really high end. And then a couple of companies that I just happened to find, both of them being in the Ukraine. Although I didn't look in Ukraine, I found the people and then realized that that's where they were located. The value that I find from them as we're building something like SmartSuite is that as I need resources with different talent to work on different things that I'm building, I switch those people out on those projects. I still have a core group of people that know our product inside out, but maybe I need a specialist in SSO. I bring that person in, for single sign-on to do that piece for 2 or 3 months. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to hire somebody to do just that at that level, that's there. So we at SmartSuite, we spent the first 2.5 years building our core platform before we ever announced to a single customer what we were doing. And we were able to use about 100 developers across those 3 companies, from mobile, web, and then the specialty piece, to build our core product. And today we have about 45 to 50 of those core people that work on our product every day. And then the remainder come in each month for, typically a couple months at a time based on the feature or function, that we're focused on at that time. So it's a different model, but it's worked really well for us because we could spin up and then we could spin down really fast as we need to.
So it's interesting you say that. We have a similar model, much smaller, of course. There's only 10 of us, right?
Okay.
But we use contract. Now we're US only. That's a thing of ours.
Okay.
That we only use US based resources. But we do a similar thing. We have our core team. We have 4 internal devs, and they're amazing. But when we need a new skill set, or they're overworked, not overbooked, not overworked. We never overwork our developers. But yeah, says the guy who just had a weekend. Anyway, so we go and find a contractor to fill those. So it's a very similar model, but we still have that. Those core guys are super important to us, right? You're 45 that are your core. How do you keep them from leaving? I mean, it's never perfect, but how does your culture try to prevent them from leaving? I guess is really.
Yeah, I'm a huge believer in the agile methodology. I don't know if you follow that in your company, but what that really means is that a lot of communication is what agile is all about. We're going to over communicate, and it starts off each day with what's called a stand up, where you take 10 to 15 to 30 minutes with a group of people and you talk about, here's what I did yesterday, here's what I'm working on today, here's any blockers that I have. I do 5 of those meetings starting at between 6 and 6:30 each morning, my time, depending upon who I'm talking to. I do 5 of those each morning to kick things off with all of our people. So I have the chance to touch every developer every day for 15 to 30 minutes, where they're able to understand the vision of what we're all working on, like in their piece, answer questions. But the big thing is we want to connect them to hear what other people are working on. And you want to know that if they do have a blocker, that there's just something that's in their way of getting stuff done. They know that I'm listening and I'm directing people right now in that conversation, changing priorities to go get things done so that that blocker, doesn't hold that person back. I think that that's for us in our company, that's the first part of our culture where we touch people, is that every morning, during those first 5 meetings, I'm able to be connected with every person in the company that's there. And then I go about, the rest of my day getting real work done, meaning I'm doing my piece, but that first part of 2.5 hours is the connection piece. And that's served us well. We have had, I can't even think, I'm just trying to think who's even left us in the last 3 years. Like, developers are a unique group of people in that, they're very independent, but at the same time, they may tell you they don't want to know everything that's going on, but they sure like to know what all the other developers are working on, see updates, see demos of what they're doing. It's kind of competitive. So if one person is showing something off on a Friday demo, we have Friday demo day. It's called Demo Retro, where we talk about, hey, here's all the great stuff we completed this week. And then we do retro, which is, hey, here's the things we could have done better if we did it again. So we kind of go into the next week kind of with those understandings. And the retro gives the developers the chance to kind of pick at things a little bit, say what they don't like, and gives you a chance to kind of fix those. But specific to the development community, I've found that that's super helpful to have the stand-ups on each day, and then on Fridays do the demo retros.
The retros sound cool. We usually just have those conversations on Slack afterward, but it sounds like a good idea to actually have them in a meeting.
Well, our PMs meet with their devs at least every other day, but usually every day, depending on which projects are spun up or not. So they're doing their own little stand-ups. We follow a modified agile because we're a fixed fee shop.
Okay.
And so agile and fixed fee kind of fight.
Yep.
So we've had to kind of change it some so it fits our methodologies, but we use, like, one of our PMs is a scrum master, but we only use that partially. It's like, where can we borrow an idea from? Because ultimately agile is time materials by nature. And so we can only go so far in that. But I feel like it is time to actually let you tell us what SmartSuite is, because you've been talking and being great, but
we haven't actually
run a really
officially
cool
started the interview. Yeah. So
let's interview you. How about that? We'll try that.
Yeah, I'd love to tell you about SmartSuite. So SmartSuite is a no-code work management platform. It allows businesses to manage any business process or project inside of their company on a single platform, right? Our vision is to, probably in today's world, you probably have 4, 5, 6 different products that you're using each day to kind of do your job, right? If you kind of follow the analyst, that number 6 to 8 is an average employee of, as they're bouncing around, changing tabs to kind of do their work each day. SmartSuite is trying to take all of those capabilities that you need across all those 6 to 8 platforms and put it in a single platform that's there, and give you 90 to 95% of those features right out of the gate for you to use. Then we also,
So,
yeah, go
well,
ahead.
I'm just sorry. So when I'm just trying to, so when you say 6 things, does that include things like email, or is that just like you guys trying replacing email has been a dream forever that everyone,
Yep.
I mean, that's brutal, right?
Yeah, we can replace a big chunk of email that actually happens. And let me give you some of those product categories so you can maybe kind of visualize this. But at the lowest level, there's things like form builders, right? Where you're just collecting data in forms, maybe through your website or somewhere, and you need to pass that data back in. You have collaboration tools like Slack, maybe that you're mentioning. Maybe you're getting away from email and using more Slack. We have Slack capabilities built in at the record level. So as you're having a conversation or in a record working on something with a set of tasks, the conversation is specific to that group of tasks. So if I want to find something in the future, I just go to that record and I see that specific conversation. Slack is great, but it's like a big fire hose in that for me, I only really remember the last 2 or 3 days of things in Slack. And if I want to find something, it's kind of hard sometimes to do that. And then you have project management tools where you need to track, people that are doing things with due dates and statuses and priorities that are there. And then you have more process tools. Think of like, your sales tools like Salesforce, HubSpot for marketing, Zendesk for service, Bamboo for HR. Then you have integration tools like Zapier and Make and Ply, that whole group, right? And then business analytics with dashboards and things. So we give you all those capabilities in one platform. And then we provide about 200 business process templates. So that if you're not sure what a best-in-class sales process looks like, we'll show you, here's best-in-class, but maybe you don't need best-in-class. Maybe you need kind of the intermediate version, that's there. Or maybe you're just getting started, you want the really simple version. So across any business process in a company, I just mentioned sales, but we go across 35 categories. We'll give you those different options for what that process actually looks like. So our customers range from a couple of people to thousands of people, Fortune 1000 companies, and they use us to run their business. Like we're the core product where they actually, each employee logs in each day and they're managing the work that each person does inside of our platform, whether they consider it a project or a process that's there.
So would you consider, and maybe this is sacrilege, and I don't mean it to be, but we played with all of these tools, right? Like I mentioned, we married ClickUp a couple of years ago.
Yep.
But we played with all of them. Are you guys more ClickUp or more Airtable? Or, because I've seen the demos and stuff of SmartSuite, and it looks very similar to Airtable, Coda, that kind of thing, more than ClickUp, which is basically a very fancy task management tool, right? It's project management and really only project management, rather than Airtable is like whatever you want it to be.
Yep, exactly. I'll give you what a customer said back to us, and I use this quite often now. They said if Airtable, ClickUp, and Notion had a baby together, it would be SmartSuite. Meaning we bring you the best of those 3 product categories together. So we're a relational database type product that allows you to build out processes very similar to Airtable. On top of Airtable, though, Airtable has 28 field types. We have 44. Field types are when you set things up, like if I want to track a project and I need to have a due date and an assignment and a status and these different things. We have specific fields for that. And that's what ClickUp is all about, right? Those fields I just mentioned there, a task. Yep. Everything in ClickUp is a task, but you don't always, if you're running a sales process, that sales process isn't, companies aren't called task, accounts aren't called task, right? So we try to blend those together. And then we also provide what we call a Smart Doc, which is like a Google Doc or a Notion Doc. That's just a field type. That's a regular document with all the features. That's like you shared a doc with me today with the notes about things we would talk about, right? We have
funny story. Those originated in Notion, and then they got moved over to ClickUp. Yeah.
But that's where I think long term where no code is going to head, and that's what the beauty of no code is all about. Is that it's going to evolve to help you manage your core business on one platform. You don't need 6 to 8 products to do that. You don't need a task management product that's completely different than your process products, right? That's just one place to do work. And that's the goal of SmartSuite and that's what we feel is unique, is to bring all of that together in one platform. And that's why we worked, with about 100 devs for 2.5 years to build the core technology before we even announced what we were doing. Like, this wasn't I work for 3 to 6 months and release my MVP and I build on it, make it better. Like, we felt that if we really wanted to solve the problem, we had to go to customers and say, we've solved it. 90 to 95% of it is solved right now. If we didn't do that, we'd feel like they'd come back to us and say, you're just a competitor to Airtable and you're not as good. You're just a competitor to ClickUp and not as good. We have a lot of features that both of those don't have. Both of those have some features we don't, but we want to be in that same conversation that's there. And we just this month alone, over 1,000 new customers. I think 45% Airtable and almost the remainder ClickUp. Those two companies. And the reason for that is a few of the larger content providers, video people that talk about those products have brought us on and produced videos about comparing us to those products. And it's just brought a lot of people to us really fast, which is fascinating. Those two companies in particular. Yeah.
So we're all about startups, and so I have so many places I want to go, but we focus a lot on our podcast here on startups and getting up and running your small business and stuff like that. You just mentioned you guys built this behemoth of, it's 90 to 95% of 3 of the biggest players out there, right? You can't do that without a serious amount of investment, right? So you guys, there's no bootstrapping this. This is because you had to hire 100 devs to do it, right? So this is not, no one's writing that single check, well, unless you're just truly blessed. But how did you come from a background that allowed you to raise the kind of money? Did you have partners? I know, once you're kind of in that space and you've done success, finding money is the easy part. I find that to be very interesting. Once you're at a certain level of your career, it's like you just know rich people. And that sounds weird, but like I have a friend, he sold his business. He's a millionaire. He just happens to have other friends who are millionaires. He wanted to raise money. It took him a week. I mean, it was just like, hey, buddy. He's like, sure, here's a couple $100K. I mean, wow. Right. I mean, so I know there's some of that. And some of the other CEOs have similar sorts of relationships with people who have done extraordinarily well. They've been building businesses for dozens of years. Is that where you fit in? You just had those contacts, or how did you get to be able to do that?
Yeah, I put in about $16 million personally. So it's all self-funded.
That helps
through us.
That's bootstrapping on a whole nother level, man. Right. That is awesome.
Yeah. And I'll tell you the story of what made that possible. So I built one of the first no-code platforms for the enterprise back in 2000, 2001. We started. The second company that started within a month of us was Mark Benioff at Salesforce. Right. Mark focused on sales and marketing processes. At Archer, we focused at the time on what was cybersecurity that turned into governance, risk, and compliance. Those were the processes around how large tech companies and banks secured systems that they needed to have other people come and access, like online banking, right? And I looked at that, and at the time there were no processes around, governance, risk, and compliance. So I came up with processes just like, accounts payable, accounts receivable, payroll. I thought, okay, there's the same things for GRC. And we were the first company to offer those that are there. I sold that company in 2010 to one of the big tech guys. They do in excess of $700 million a year in recurring revenue today. So they're just crushing it. They're not crushing it like Salesforce, but in the big scheme of things, it's
all relative, right? I mean, the numbers get so ridiculous.
Right. So I had a background in no-code enterprise companies. I had worked with 75 of the Fortune 100 were customers at Archer before we sold it. So I had a background in what we're doing in the no-code space. And about 3.5 years ago, what got interesting to me is I'd invested in about 400 startups, and I had a lot of conversations with the founders about what systems and processes do we put in place in the company as we grow. We would spend as much time talking about that as we did the idea they had. And it would just frustrate the hell out of me. And I finally just said, I'm going to go build exactly what I think people want. Whether they're 2 people or 10,000 people in a company, it's just a process, and they need these features to enable that process. So they stop talking about, going and buying all these different products and integrating them together. Let's just buy one solution that's there. And with new technology, that was available 3 years ago, it really enabled us to do some really unique things, to make things much more performant, to make our UI, it's really focused on millennials and Gen Zers, but it's really fast. It comes with all the color and optimization that's in there. But there's just technologies that weren't available even 5 or 6 years ago that are available now to build something really special. So that's why I was willing to put so much money into it initially, hire all these people, was we thought that this is really like the third or fourth generation no code platform that's coming out. People argue, is this third generation or is it really fourth? It depends on where, how far back you go to start with no code that's in there. Long-winded answer, but
oh, I love it. No, I love it. Gary, did you have a question?
Yeah. The app sounds amazing. I love everything you were just saying about building the UI for millennials and Gen Z or whatever. You mentioned speed, which was the first thing that I thought of when you were talking about the one product solution for everybody. Immediately, just because I'm older than I look, so I've been using computer stuff like software for quite a while, and it just seems like the more the app can do, the slower and more sluggish and just overworked it gets, and it becomes more of a hassle and a hindrance than an actual like joy to use. But I am seeing now with the newer tools that are being developed, like I'm primarily a designer, so things that I've been using a lot lately, things like Figma. For everything that it can do, it is still really zippy, even in a browser, even in the desktop app. So I'm assuming that those new technologies and that kind of speed is what we can also see in SmartSuite.
It is. Yeah. Let me give you a great story. You're very familiar with ClickUp, and ClickUp is known for lots and lots of features. They're very feature rich, right? What ClickUp is also known for is it can be a little buggy and it gets slow at times, right? They've been working on their new architecture for some time. That's pretty typical of a startup company. What happened at ClickUp is they basically did their MVP and customers started coming in the thousands, right, to use their product. They started adding more features. All of a sudden they look back and said, maybe the architecture that we have is not the best architecture long-term to support all these customers that we have, right? With SmartSuite, we had the luxury of saying, we're going to take the first 2 years and build the architecture with all this knowledge that we have and build it right. And the reason we didn't bring in customers was because if we brought customers in during that journey, they would have said, we need this feature and that feature. And we would have said, okay, we're going to add this feature and that feature and not build the architecture in a way that supports what we need long-term. So the reason SmartSuite is fast right now is that our architecture was, we gave the developers the time to build the architecture that they felt we needed to support the volume of customers that we want long-term. And most startups don't have that luxury. We're in a very different place with me being able to fund the company than a normal, you even take Airtable, another great example that you mentioned. I'm sure they had some bootstrap, but they had to go raise funds. And with raising that money comes, things that you need to do or prove. And it's not, right. You can't spend the time maybe to build the architecture the way you want. You got to go focus on customers faster.
Well, yeah, you're talking about the difference between like people like Elon Musk complain that our stock-based economies and the big companies have to focus so much on the short term because that's how the stockholders are there. Exactly. When you're private, you can go long term because who is my money, whatever, dude. I mean, I think that's what you're ultimately getting at. And I think that's amazing. And that gives you such a long-term trajectory, but you still have a runway, right? Eventually those customers have to come in, right? Because exactly. You're not writing those checks forever. Exactly. I want to turn the conversation a little bit. There's two main things that immediately come to mind. One, I want to nerd out about low code for a moment. And then two, I want to, with your blessing, I want to nerd out about your tech stack for a minute, because that's just inherently fascinating. Maybe that won't ever make the podcast because that's super boring, but I'm very curious. But I want to talk about low code, no code, because we talk about this. I mean, we're custom software developers. That's what we do. We build apps. We build software for people. And so people ask us regularly, hey, are you scared of no code, low code? So far, no, because what we do and what that kind of code does is a little different. So I'm going to ask you that line. So if I'm using SmartSuite and I'm really digging it and I'm using it for all my stuff, and I am a custom soap maker. I always use soap. I don't know why. I'm managing my soap company, and I want to do something very unique, and I don't know what that would be right off the top of my head, but something very unique that's only for the soap thing. I'm outside of, you got your 44 different templates or whatever. It was more than that, that you have built, and you guys have done a great job of doing that. But I need something different. How do I do that? Can I do that with you? Do you have some sort of lift up the hood and dive in and get something crazy in there? Or do you just say, well, go use Zapier or something like that?
No, so about 40% of our customers that come in currently are using us to build out processes that they have inside of their company already. Whether it's small business, large business, that they're happy with. They just need to move to a new platform for various reasons that are there, or they're moving off of a lot of manual type things, spreadsheets and type things that they're using. That even goes with, we onboarded a Fortune 500 company still using spreadsheets to run a $53 billion real estate business, right? So that's still happening today. Lost my train of thought there for a second. But no code is, when you want to build out and model out a business process, no code allows you to do that in a drag and drop fashion that allows the person that knows the process to actually build the process without the need for an actual developer that's there. So about 40% of our customers use that. We provide 8 hours of onboarding time for any customer that comes on board to get them started. And people are amazed at what we do in a day with, one or two of our onboarding people compared to what they could build for months and months, using a developer that's there. So we get people running really fast. We then have a pretty robust partner network with even people like yourself, like your company, that provide their services back to our customers. And those services range from business process automation experts, where they're saying, hey, I just want to listen to your process. We're going to just model that out on how that should be optimally, done. And then we're going to use a tool like SmartSuite, and we're going to, configure that to support the process that you have. And then we have people like yourself that are really good on the integration side that say, okay, now we've built this, we need to integrate with 4 systems. Most people who use Zapier or Make, you can set things up in 15, 20 minutes to do what used to take a week of developers' time. But there's still times where there are companies that have APIs to internal systems where Zapier and Make it's not available, right? You just have to build those in. So you use our API to actually make the connection that's there.
Do you guys do like webhooks and stuff like that to other external?
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, in the no-code space, I was just going to chime in on the no-code space. We do use products that are no-code, like we use Webflow for websites and marketing sites, and we use Zapier for connections and things like that. I noticed your website was built in Webflow, which awesome. Thank you. I love that tool.
It is. I don't think you can be a no-code platform and not use other no-code, low-code tools in your overall tech stack, right? So we started using Webflow when they were still pretty new. We connected with one of their partners that was actually in Serbia, of all places. Went over and met with him. He was all of 22 years old and was one of the top partners. They did the Upwork site, and that's how we found them. And I just realized, like, that's the new generation. This was a young kid, 22, with an agency of 30 people, because he was so good at Webflow. He was just crushing it. I don't know how many they have now, but I'm sure they're double or triple that size in the last couple of years. And Webflow is a great, easy product to use to build a pretty complex website in not a lot of time.
Gary's a big fan.
Well, you wanted to go into their tech stack, and I just thought I'd mention those.
No, that's fine. No, if I run into a wall and if I need to connect to, one of the things that we tell our clients is don't reinvent the wheel, right? So if you want accounting, don't build an accounting software, go use one, because they're, $10 million apps. You don't need to spend that. Go use it. So if I needed to, I've been, using your stuff, and I've got an e-commerce site. My guess is I have let's say Shopify, because everyone uses Shopify. Uh-huh. I'm guessing there's some sort of integration into y'all from Shopify.
There is.
Is that, yeah?
Yeah.
So if I sell a widget on Shopify, it trickles down to you, but I need to do something special with this to talk to my inventory system. So I need to use a webhook to go and do that, because, I'm using Profit 21 or something crazy. And then finally I need to talk to QuickBooks. Right. Those things are we're dropping those things off onto their plates. And you guys sit in the middle. That's generally speaking.
We do. So think of SmartSuite as, we want to connect all these things together as easy as we can for you so you can run your business. So most no-code tools will have this new term called automations. an automation is just a fancy word for saying we've made it easy with triggers and actions for you to go in and drag and drop and set up connections between other products. So we do that inside of our own product to create new records when certain events happen, to change statuses, send emails, all kinds of cool stuff. Then we have a native stack of about 20 integrations that our customers have asked for. 9 of those that we have released so far. The other 11 are coming in the next 2 to 3 months that are there. But that's like Salesforce and Intercom, the Google Suite, the Microsoft Suite, Microsoft Teams, Zendesk, HubSpot, all of those. So what we're trying to say is we're going to give you the basics right out of the box. There's no additional fee. You don't have to go to Zapier or Make and pay a monthly fee for these integrations. That's included in your price with SmartSuite. But if you need kind of that next level support, maybe Zapier or Make might even be better for you in certain cases outside of this core 20. Because if you look at Zapier, they have connections to 5,000 other products. We have 20, right? But we do those 20 really well, and we integrate with Zapier really well. And we have webhooks, all these cool things that just makes the integration, it's a non-conversation at this point with most companies. That problem is being solved or has been solved. And we can move on to kind of the next conversation. That wasn't the same 3 years ago, but that's not something that holds us back as a company talking about integrations with someone.
Very cool. All right. So now it's time for me in our last few minutes. I want to nerd out for a second. So what is this tech stack that you guys are built in?
Yeah. So we're React on the front end. We use a combination of Mongo and Postgres, different databases on the back to kind of depends on the data that we're pulling and our need and how fast we need to pull that. We do a lot of cool things that we think with Mongo and Postgres, and pulling a little bit of information for both at the same time to put things on the page sub-second is what we try to do, even for really large record sets that are there. We use Auth0 for kind of all the authentication needs and single sign-on and types around the outside. We use FileStack for all the file storage. And I don't know if you're familiar with FileStack. They're really efficient at allowing you to upload files, to compress those, move them around, save them. Most of the big players in the no-code space are using FileStack or one of their competitors that's there. That's not something that was available 5 years ago that you would write that yourselves. That's a great example of that's something that's available that does things so fast. The same with Auth0 on the authentication. You don't have to write all that stuff yourself. There's industry leading companies like OAuth that allow you to use their text.
Now, is that, you're calling it Auth0? I've always called that Auth0. Is that the same thing?
Auth0, yeah.
That's fine. I was just wanting to make sure. When I've looked at that for clients, it's really pricey once you get to real numbers. Like it's hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a month. And so that's where we were all like, dude, whoa, it's cool, but wow.
Yeah, no, it's nowhere close to that for us. Kind of, I guess, depends on your use cases that's there. So all the authentication inside of our product happens through their servers, right? And then they have all the certifications that people need to make sure whether you're a government entity or, need HIPAA compliance, like all that's taken care of. They also allow you to enable single sign-on for things. So now we have clients that we can just turn that on for on and on. They allow tokens, not just API keys. So we don't have to, it's the most secure way for us to pass data around. And then we use AWS for our hosting and a whole host of, it take 20 minutes to tell you all the technologies on AWS.
All the gizmos in that toolbox.
Yeah.
Dude, what is your back-end language? I heard React on the front. Are you using Node on the back, or are you using
Python and Node? Yeah.
Python and Node. Very cool. It's always fascinating to me. We have two types of clients. We use a lot of React. We have some Angular, but on the back end, some of our clients are Microsoft shops and they're married to them for whatever reason. Yep. And so we have .NET. That's my home. That's where I nerded out for 20 years. And then we have people who don't care that they're all Node. That's generally how it splits. And generally it's Postgres and SQL Server, depending. Again, if you're been married to them and you've been using Azure or you're a huge enterprise, I mean, that's where Microsoft lives. And so that's my home. And so it never was a problem. As a consultancy, that became one of our uniquer features, because a lot of those guys are like, we don't touch Microsoft. For whatever religious reason, Microsoft was evil and had been labeled as such. And we're like, no, we do it fine. It's great. And but Azure is a wonderful platform, but we use both depending on the needs. Well, so, okay, I don't want to waste your time. I know we only have you for an hour. I want to make sure that anyone who's interested in SmartSuite has the ability. I mean, it's clearly smartsuite.com, right? But how else, if they had questions and they wanted to, I mean, obviously they're not reaching out to you specifically, but how would they get in, entrenched in learning more about you guys?
Yeah. What's the easiest way to become quickly more informed about the product and the benefits that it has for their company?
Yep, I'll give you a couple ways. You just go to smartsuite.com and start a free 14-day trial, no credit card required. At the end of 14 days, if you don't want to move to a paid plan, it just moves to a 3-user free forever plan. So we try to make that part easy for you to try it out. But in the bottom right-hand corner of the website and every page in the product, there's a little icon that you can click on that opens up a direct chat with a member of our onboarding team right then. We typically answer questions in less than 45 minutes. A lot of times it's right now, but our average is 45 minutes. So pretty fast that's there. And then we have all kinds of guides and videos that are there. There's 2 specific video producers that have produced video content about SmartSuite. I don't know if you know Gap Consulting with Gareth Provenost. He has been an Airtable expert for quite a number of years. He did a review of SmartSuite and then brought it in-house and said, now I'm SmartSuite and Airtable. He produced quite a number of videos to explaining why. And if you're an Airtable user, it's really great because he just kind of lays out, here's when you'd use Airtable, here's when you might want to use SmartSuite. I don't know if you know Layla from Process Driven. She is kind of the ClickUp person. She has about 30,000 followers from ClickUp. We asked her to do a review a couple of months ago. She did the same thing, and she changed her business model to include SmartSuite. And she now does a weekly video on us, and she did a SmartSuite versus Airtable. So those are great, non-biased videos from kind of some leaders to help you understand, when ClickUp or SmartSuite might be the best product for you.
Those are some of the best ways I have found to kind of take a look behind the hood of newer products, especially like everything I learned in Notion when I was using Notion was through videos for YouTube. And ClickUp, there's so much in ClickUp that I don't use that if I need to start, I'll look for videos. But yeah, having prominent reviewers go through and kind of give your product a thumbs up, that has to be like you said, that has to start bringing in some new subscribers pretty quickly. Yeah, I would assume.
You say we do no outbound marketing. We do no paid marketing as an organization. We average about 150 signups a day. And most of those are coming through LinkedIn and YouTube videos from people just finding us and sharing information. We don't pay for those. It just happens kind of coming back. So that's kind of the new world of SaaS products, and no code is just the word of mouth is the most effective way to market some of these products.
Very cool. So, I have a quick question. So the bottom right corner, you said there's a little chat thing. Is that y'all or is that like Intercom?
That's Intercom. Yep. So you just pop up the Intercom modal. Another great product that we have across our tech stack. Anywhere that you interact with us, you're going to find Intercom there as well.
I was just wondering, you had mentioned, I was just wondering if that was one of the ones you had taken over, because I find Intercom very fascinating. Okay. Well, thank you so very much for joining us. This gets right in my wheelhouse. I love this stuff. Gary, if there was anything anyone wanted to ask us about the podcast or anything we've talked about here, how would they get in touch with us?
They can email us at hello@thebigpixel.net, or they could comment underneath the video on YouTube, or they can connect with us through any of our social media channels, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, all of them.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Jon. This has been really great. I've really enjoyed it. And, I think I'm going to have to convince David to do the 14-day trial. So
exactly. We love it.
I just paid for another year of ClickUp. You cannot know.
But if it's a shiny new thing, it's a shiny new thing.
We'll do, David, you sign up with us and we'll waive the fees for the amount of time in your current ClickUp.
Oh man. Someone keep that little marker.
We're still recording, Jon. We're still recording.
I love it. I love the hard sell.
Yeah.
The truth of the matter is when we were choosing ClickUp, and we tried them all, right? At the time, this was 2 years ago or something. So all the ones that we could find, we tried. And my team got so mad at me because I kept signing up for all these trials. Like, dude, I can't get any work done. Stop it. So
it was more or less a just pick one already type deal.
Just pick
Not this is the best. It's just pick one.
No, they did there was a vote. We had a vote. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us.
All right. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.